Derek Williams Okoli, a man who had it all except the one thing he truly craved: love. Not the let's pose for Instagram and go on Dubai trips kind of love. Not the baby, send me 2 million to fix my car engine kind either. He wanted the kind of love his late mother always talked about. The love that made you feel safe even in a thunderstorm. The kind that made you want to grow old, argue over small things, then cuddle on the same couch with a plate of amala in hand. But sadly, with billions in his account and his face splashed all over business magazines, real love became a myth. Everything felt transactional. Girls fell over themselves to get a piece of him. Some even staged accidental meetings in elevators. One girl fainted dramatically at a charity gala. No sickness, just love for money. He'd dated models, influencers, even a pastor's daughter who spoke in tongues only when asking for credit alerts. Derek had become a magnet for money hunters in love's clothing. It was his 34th birthday. Balloons, waiters in tuxedos, a cake taller than a toddler, and guests with fake laughter and glass cups that clinked too often. Derek sat in a corner, wearing a designer shirt, his face tired and emotionless. Across from him, Tony, his childhood friend and now personal assistant, nursed a bottle of water and eyed him suspiciously. "Why do you look like someone who just found out pepper soup isn't really soup?" Tony asked Derek, let out a small laugh. "Because I'm surrounded by strangers who want me, not my heart." "Wow, that's deep," Tony said, almost Shakespearean. "But seriously, what do you want? You're rich, good-looking, some women want to lick your shadow, and you're still this moody." Derek leaned back, eyes scanning the fake smiles around him. "I want love, Tony, real love. Someone who doesn't even know I own the Okoli Group. Someone who'll bring me food in a black nylon, not post me for likes." Tony whistled. "Then you better stop bathing with money, go and find that love in the trenches." Derek smiled slowly. "That's not a bad idea." Tony paused. "Wait, you're joking, right?" But Derek wasn't. That night, after everyone left, he made up his mind. He was going to disappear from this life, temporarily. He would become a nobody. By the next morning, Derek was serious. He called Tony, "I want you to help me vanish. Change my name, delete my social media, and find me a job in one of my father's properties. Somewhere far from here, please." Tony blinked. "You're actually serious?" "Dead serious. I want to be poor for a little while." "Do you also want malaria to complete the experience?" Tony muttered. Derek chuckled. "Maybe. I need to live like a normal guy." After 2 days of planning, Tony came through with the perfect cover. "There's an estate in Egbeda, one of your father's smaller properties, quiet, filled with regular people. They're hiring a night gatekeeper." Derek grinned. "Perfect." He picked the name Emma, simple, forgettable. He trimmed his hair, wore faded jeans and a polo that looked like it had been ironed by life itself. No wristwatch, no perfume. He even wore slippers that slapped the floor like they had something to say. And just like that, the billionaire became a gatekeeper. Night 1. He sat in the tiny gatehouse, the air smelling of dust, mothballs, and old mosquito coils. It was oddly peaceful. No phone ringing, no emails, no fake laughs, just frogs croaking in the distance and a quiet breeze that whispered, "Welcome to the trenches, sir." At around 8 p.m., he heard a soft knock. He opened the gate, and there she was. Adaora, a young woman in a simple skirt and white blouse, hair in a neat bun, carrying a bag of provisions and a plastic bowl. She paused and looked at him. "Good evening, Oga." "Good evening, madam," he replied, surprised by how gentle her voice was. She smiled. "You're new here. I'm Adaora, flat 5. My mum said I should welcome you and bring you food." She handed him a warm bowl of jollof rice with plantain. Derek blinked. In his 34 years of life, no woman had ever brought him food without sending a budget afterward. "Thank you," he said softly. She laughed. "You're welcome. Just don't close the gate before 10 p.m. or the aunties that do night vigil will fight you." She walked off, hips swaying slightly, and Derek felt something stir in his chest. "Tony," he whispered later that night, "I think I've just met someone interesting." Derek, or Emma the gatekeeper, as the neighborhood now called him, couldn't sleep that night. Not because of mosquitoes, though they danced around him like drunk uncles at a village wedding, but because of her. Adaora. The girl with eyes that smiled before her lips did. The one who brought him food without asking for anything in return. The one who called him ogre without batting her lashes or licking her lips seductively like others did. She was real. The next morning, Derek woke up to the sound of a hawker shouting, "Bowl and fish, buy your hot bowl." He chuckled and stretched his legs. This life was different. Humbling. As he stepped outside the gate to sweep the front area, he was committed to playing his role well. He heard soft footsteps behind him. "Good morning, Ogre Emma." It was her again, Adaora. "Morning," he said, suddenly self-conscious of his dusty slippers. "You're sweeping well. We've never had a gatekeeper that sweeps like he's composing a love letter with the broom," she teased. He laughed. "I'm just trying to impress my boss." She smiled and looked away. "I'm going to the school down the road. I teach primary 3 pupils. If you hear small children singing off-key around 9 a.m., that's me." "You're a teacher?" he asked, surprised she nodded. "Yes, I love children, even the ones that drive me crazy." Derek blinked. A teacher, smart, simple, unapologetically herself, not interested in his last name or his account balance. She turned to leave. "Oh, by the way," she said, stopping at the gate, "my mum said you should stop by for dinner tonight. She wants to know who's guarding us now." He raised an eyebrow. "Is that an invitation or an interrogation?" "Both," she said with a wink, and walked off. By 7 p.m. that evening, Derek showed up at their door, heart thumping like an engine with no oil. He had worn his cleanest polo shirt and ironed his trousers until the crease could cut onions. He knocked, the door creaked open, and a warm, motherly voice said, "Come in, young man. Sit down. I hope you didn't lock the gate before coming, oh." Mama Adaora, short, round, with the energy of 3 women. Her wrapper was tied tight, and her voice could rearrange your destiny. "No, Ma, the other security man is on duty tonight," Derek said, bowing slightly. She smiled. Respectful. You must be from a good home." Adaora entered the room. "Mummy, don't scare him away," she teased. "Why? I'm only observing. These days you have to scan people spiritually. This one looks humble, doesn't talk too much. But we must watch." They all laughed, and soon dinner was served, pounded yam with bitter leaf soup and grilled fish so well seasoned that Derek nearly forgot his billionaire roots. As they ate, Mama Adaora stared at him and asked, "So Emma, you've been around rich people before, haven't you?" Derek almost choked. "Ma? Your manners, your way of speaking. You don't behave like someone born and bred in the trenches." He smiled nervously. "My father worked for a wealthy man. I picked a few things." Adaora glanced at him, curious, but said nothing. Her mother nodded. "Good, stay humble. Don't ever let hardship change your heart." Those words sat deep in Derek's soul. After dinner, as he prepared to leave, Adaora walked him to the gate. They stood there under the soft glow of the security bulb, the night air crisp with silent emotions. "Thanks for coming," she said softly. "You made my mum laugh. That's rare. I think I'll sleep with a full stomach and a fuller heart tonight." Derek replied with a smile. She laughed. "Be careful. That kind of talk sounds like feelings." "Maybe," he said, his voice low. They locked eyes for a second too long. Something passed between them, not fireworks, not thunderclaps, just a quiet understanding, 2 souls gently noticing each other. "Good night, Teacher Adaora." "Good night, Ogre Gatekeeper." He watched her walk away, then leaned against the gate. 3 days had passed since the dinner at Adaora's place, but Derek couldn't stop thinking about her. Not just her beauty, that one was undeniable, but her warmth, her laugh, her little sarcastic jabs that felt more like gentle pokes to the heart. She was nothing like the polished girls he knew in his billionaire world who wore fake accents like accessories. Adaora was raw, real, radiant, and that was dangerous. Because every night he told himself, "Emma, remember you're undercover. Don't fall. You're here for an experiment, not a love story. But love doesn't wait for experiments. It doesn't ask for permission. It just happens." It was a Friday morning, and Derek had the entire day off. His boss at the estate, a nosy but harmless estate manager named Mr. Kunli, had given him the day to rest his bones. Instead of resting, Derek found himself at the entrance of Divine Hope Nursery and Primary School, the same school Adaora had mentioned. He stood by the rusted gate, holding a bag of pure water and staring through the fence like a confused parent who forgot which child was his. Then he heard her voice. "Gatekeeper, what are you doing here? Are you moonlighting as a school inspector now?" Derek turned. There she was. He smiled. She looked like a mix of Mother Teresa and Miss Nigeria. "I was passing by and thought, let me see what kind of kids are lucky enough to have you as a teacher." "Oh," she rolled her eyes, such sweet words from a man with dusty slippers. "These slippers have seen things," he replied dramatically. "They've walked me through heartbreak, plantains, and now crushes on teachers." She raised an eyebrow. "Eh?" He quickly laughed. "Joking, just joking." But was he? Adaora invited him in. The classroom was tiny, cracked walls, creaky windows, but filled with laughter and noise that made it feel like the happiest place on earth. 20 children sat on small desks, drawing with broken crayons and humming a song that clearly had no end. "Everyone, say good morning to Mr. Emma," she announced. "Good morning, Mr. Emma," they all chorused. "How are you?" he replied awkwardly. "Fine, thank you," they responded, some saluting like confused soldiers. Adaora giggled and whispered to him, "Don't be deceived. They're cute but dangerous. The girl with the blue ribbon once poured sand into my handbag." He bent to one little girl who had drawn a wobbly stick figure of her mummy. "Wow, that's beautiful. What's her name?" he asked. "Her name is Mummy. She sells rice," the girl said proudly. "She must be a queen," he smiled as he moved from desk to desk. Derek felt something tug in his chest. He wasn't just falling for Adaora, he was falling in love with her world. Later that day, as the kids ran outside for break, Adaora and Derek sat on a wooden bench under a mango tree. She handed him a bottle of Fanta and a meat pie from her lunchbox. "You know, you don't act like most men around here," she said. "Because I don't catcall or slap my slippers loudly when I walk?" he asked with a smile. "Exactly. You're different. I don't know how to explain it." He sipped his Fanta. "Maybe I was raised to treat women like humans, not objects." She looked at him closely. "Sometimes I feel like you're hiding something." His heart skipped. "What makes you say that?" "I don't know. You're humble but too polished. You act poor, but something about your confidence doesn't match the slippers." Derek smiled and shrugged. "Maybe I'm just a confusing man." She shook her head. "Maybe you're just pretending not to be a prince." They both laughed, but deep down, her words struck a nerve. She was smart, too smart. When rain meets hearts as they walked out of the school, clouds darkened and thunder growled in the distance. Then, without warning, the skies opened. Rain poured like heaven's heartbreak. They ran for shelter, but the only place nearby was a rickety wooden shed beside a kiosk. They huddled there, soaking wet and shivering, their faces close, breath fogging up the little dry space between them. Derek looked at her, rainwater running down her cheek like tears from an old Nollywood movie. "You're beautiful," he said without thinking. Adaora froze for a second. "And you're wet," she replied, voice soft. They laughed nervously, both hearts drumming louder than the rain on the roof. Then, silence. The kind that wasn't awkward, the kind that spoke volumes. He reached for her hand, and to his surprise, she didn't pull away. "Don't fall for me, Emma," she whispered. "Why?" "Because I'm not ready to lose my heart again." He looked at her gently. "Then maybe this time someone will help you find it, not steal it." Their eyes met. No kiss, no dramatic music, just that magical second where something in both their hearts clicked into place. The day after the rain shelter moment, Derek couldn't concentrate. He had paced the estate gate at least 10 times, sweeping the same spot, scratching his head, and mumbling to himself like someone bitten by love mosquitoes. She held my hand. She held my hand. He replayed the scene like a favorite movie, every glance, every heartbeat, every word. It was real, and for a man who had everything but connection in his billionaire world, this feeling was rare, pure. But as the elders say, when the heart starts dancing, trouble is warming up backstage. That evening, Derek heard the loud vroom vroom of a car approaching the estate. A shiny red Lexus RX with tinted windows came to a smooth stop right in front of the compound where Adaora and her mother lived. He stood up, confused. Nobody in the compound owned that kind of car. Then the door opened, and out stepped a tall, dark-skinned man wearing a gold chain, designer shades, and a wristwatch that probably ticked in 3 languages. "Ah, Wahala has arrived," Derek muttered. Adaora stepped out of the house just as the man opened his arms wide. "Ada, baby," he exclaimed, strutting over like a peacock who just won a lottery. Derek's heart skipped. "Jay," Adaora said, blinking in shock. "Surprise, I told you I'd find you." He swept her into a hug, too long, too tight, while Derek stood behind the gate, his broom now useless in his hand. Jay, short for Jason, was Adaora's ex-boyfriend from her university days. He was smooth, charming, rich, and toxic in 25 different ways. He had ghosted her after graduation, claiming he needed to find himself. Apparently, he found a new girlfriend, crashed her car, and then decided to come crawling back to Adaora. Now he was back, armed with a Lexus and crocodile tears. "I've changed, Ada. I swear. I've made mistakes, but I can't stop thinking about you," he said, eyes pleading. "You disappeared for 2 years," she replied, voice calm but sharp. "And now you show up because you found my address." Jay chuckled. "I missed you. I was young and stupid, but now I know what I want." From the shadows, Derek watched everything. The hug, the laugh, the way Adaora didn't immediately push him away. Something in his chest tightened, a feeling he hadn't experienced since his high school crush danced with another boy at prom. Jealousy. Tension at the gate. Later that night, Jay walked over to the gate and met Derek standing guard. "You the gatekeeper?" Jay asked with a smirk. "Yes," Derek replied, keeping his tone flat. "I hope you're not one of those nosy staff that eavesdrops and starts spreading gist." Derek smiled. "I don't gossip, but I do protect." Jay narrowed his eyes. "Protect who?" "The people inside this house." Jay scoffed. "Right, you're just a gateman. Know your place." "You have no idea who you're talking to," Derek thought. But he said nothing, just watched as Jay strutted back to his car and revved his engine like a child trying to show off. The conversation that hurt. The next day, Derek caught Adaora outside as she returned from work. He tried to act casual. "Hey, didn't know you had royal visitors now." She laughed softly, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. "Yeah, Jay came out of nowhere. He wants to talk, to explain." "Are you planning to listen?" Derek asked, voice quiet. She looked at him. "I don't know, Emma. He broke me. But people change, right?" Silence. "And what about us?" Derek asked before he could stop himself. "Us?" She blinked. "You and me. The hand-holding. The mango tree. The Fanta and meat pie partnership. Doesn't that mean something?" Adaora looked down. "Emma, you're a sweet man. I like you. A lot. But I don't even know who you really are." That one stung, and she was right. He wasn't who she thought he was. He wasn't Emma the gatekeeper. He was Derek, billionaire heir to Kalu and Son's empire. But how could he tell her now? Would she still love him for him? Meanwhile, Mama Adaora is not amused. Later that night, Mama Adaora called her daughter into the living room. "That boy, Jay, smells like perfume and promises. Be careful." "Mummy, listen, my spirit doesn't rest well around that one." "And that gatekeeper? There's something special about him. That one has peace in his eyes." Adaora sighed, torn between the past and the present. Between the man who left her and the man who never stops showing up. It had been 3 days since Jay showed up, and since then, Adaora hadn't been herself. She barely smiled. She stayed locked up in her room, and whenever Derek tried to catch her eye through the gate, she looked away like the air itself had become too heavy to breathe. But the real storm was brewing inside her heart. A storm that was about to collide with something even bigger, something no one saw coming. That Wednesday morning began like any other. The birds were chirping, the sun peeked through the clouds, and Derek was sweeping the front yard, humming an old love song from Two-Face. Then he heard it, a loud thud, followed by Adaora's scream. "Mummy, Mummy, somebody help me." Derek dropped his broom and ran. Inside, he found Mama Adaora lying on the floor, eyes rolled back, chest rising and falling in strange jerks. "She just collapsed," Adaora sobbed. "She was cooking ogbono. She just fell." "Let's get her to the hospital," Derek shouted, already dialing a number on his phone. But deep inside, fear was already curling in his gut. This wasn't just tiredness. Something was very, very wrong. At the hospital, the doctor's face was grave. "Your mother has a severe kidney infection that has been building up silently. We were lucky it didn't reach her heart." "Jesus," Adaora whispered. "She needs emergency surgery, as soon as possible." Derek stepped forward. "How much will it cost?" The doctor replied calmly, 500,000 naira, and that's the discounted rate. Adaora gasped. She clutched her mother's handbag like it held a miracle. 500,000 naira. I don't even have 20,000 naira. Her eyes filled with tears. "I've sold my phone before. I've borrowed from friends. I've done everything to keep this house afloat. Where will I see that kind of money?" She turned to Derek. "Emma, I don't know what to do." And in that moment, he almost told her. He almost said, "Don't worry, Adaora. I'm a billionaire. I'll pay everything." But something in her expression stopped him. This was the test, the very reason he came as a gatekeeper in the first place, to know if love could exist without wealth. Would she love him without his riches? Would she trust him when he had nothing to offer but presents? "I'll see what I can do," he said quietly, already thinking about his emergency fund under the estate flower pot. That night, Jay came again. This time, he brought fried rice and chicken in fancy takeaway packs. He heard the news. 500,000? He scoffed. "Come on, that's small money." Adaora blinked. "You'll help?" "Of course, anything for my Ada baby." "Wait," she paused, wary. "What's the condition?" Jay leaned in, voice low and smooth like honey mixed with pepper. "Come with me to Abuja, just for a few weeks. Spend time with me. Let's rebuild us." Adaora froze. Jay took her silence as permission and continued, "I'll pay the bill tomorrow morning if you pack your bag tonight." From the shadows by the gate, Derek overheard everything. His fists clenched. His heart ached. He wanted to run in and drag Jay out of the compound. He wanted to throw the money at the doctor and tell Adaora she didn't need that clown. But instead, he did something else. He walked into the compound, met Adaora at the doorway and softly said, "I overheard what Jay said." "Emma." Her voice broke. "Don't do it," he said, eyes glistening. "Don't sell your heart for 500,000 naira. You're worth so much more." Adaora's lips trembled. "Then what should I do? Watch my mother die?" "No," he replied. "I have a little saved. I'll give you everything I have." That midnight, under the mango tree, Derek handed her a brown envelope. Inside was 300,000 naira. Every naira he had saved from his driver's allowance and the emergency stash hidden by the flowers. "I'm sorry I don't have the full amount, but I'll find a way to complete it before morning." Adaora stared at him. "You gave me everything?" "Yes," he said simply, "because I believe in you. I believe in your mother, and I believe that we're something worth fighting for." A single tear rolled down her cheek. "Emma, I don't deserve this." "No," he replied, "you deserve even more." The next morning, when Jay came with his generous offer, Adaora handed him the brown envelope. "Thanks for your concern, but I won't be going with you. We've raised the money." Jay frowned. "How?" She smiled. "Someone who truly cares helped." Jay's face darkened. He turned toward the gate and hissed, "The Gateman! That's your hero?" Adaora smiled wider. "Yes, that Gateman has more heart than any rich man I've ever met." And with that, she closed the door in his face. Mama Adaora's surgery begins. The operation was scheduled that same day. As the doctors wheeled Mama Adaora into surgery, Adaora held her hand tightly. And somewhere in the waiting room, Derek sat quietly, praying silently. Not just for Mama Adaora's life, but for the truth to finally come out. 3 days passed. Mama Adaora's surgery was successful. She was still weak, but every doctor who walked into the room had the same words on their lips. "She's strong. She'll be fine." And Adaora? She hadn't stopped smiling since that morning. Not because everything was perfect, but because for the first time in a long time, she felt safe. Not because Jay came with promises, but because Emma stayed with presence. One cool evening, after Mama Adaora had eaten and was asleep, Adaora sat with Emma by the well, where the compound's breeze always felt the most honest. She looked at him like someone who had just opened her heart for the very first time. Emma. You're not just a gatekeeper, are you? His heart jumped. Why do you say that? She smiled slightly, fingers playing with her wrapper. There's something about you. The way you speak, the way you think, even the way you look at people, like you're used to commanding rooms, not gates. Emma chuckled nervously. I guess the bush is making me wise. Adaora tilted her head and said softly, even if you're not who you say you are, thank you. Thank you for showing me that love still exists without a price tag. He looked into her eyes, and in that moment, he wanted to tell her everything. That his real name was Derek Williams Okoli. That he owned not just the mansion behind them, but 3 others across the country. That the company he claimed to work for as a driver, he owned it. But he didn't, because one thing was still left undone. The compound was peaceful, until the next afternoon. Jay returned, this time with a Toyota Camry 2022 and a box of goodies, causing a minor traffic jam in front of the gate. Adaora, he shouted, I'm not here to fight, I'm here to make peace. She came out reluctantly, arms folded. Jay knelt in front of everyone and opened the box. Inside was a shimmering engagement ring. I know I've made mistakes, but please, let me make it right. Marry me. Gasps filled the compound. Even Mama Ebuka dropped her broom. Adaora didn't move. Emma stood at the corner, watching like a man watching the final scene of a play written in betrayal. Jay stood up, took her hand and whispered, Say yes, Ada. Your mother is fine now. You've seen what I can do. Adaora looked him in the eye and said, Do you know why I'm not marrying you? Jay smirked. Because of that gatekeeper? No, she said, because of me. Because I finally know my worth, and because I'd rather marry a poor man with honor than a rich man with empty pockets of integrity. She dropped his ring and walked away. The compound erupted in whispers. Some clapped, some watched in shock. And Jay? He cursed under his breath and stormed off for the last time. That night, after dinner, Adaora walked into the gatehouse uninvited, carrying 2 plates of hot yam porridge. You haven't eaten, she said. I was waiting for you, he replied. They laughed, Saturday ate. Talked about anything and everything, until silence fell. Then Adaora looked at him, eyes shining under the dim lantern light. Emma, if you asked me to marry you right now, I'd say yes. His spoon paused mid-air. Why? He asked softly. Because you're the only man who has loved me without trying to buy me. He stood slowly, his heartbeat roared in his ears. He walked to the side of the room, and from a hidden cabinet pulled out a small velvet box. Adaora's hand flew to her mouth. Emma. That's not my real name, he said. My name is Derek. Derek Williams Okoli, the owner of this estate, and a few others. She stared, too stunned to speak. I came disguised because I wanted love. Real love, not one bought with cars or credit alerts. I needed to be sure. Tears rolled down her cheeks. You lied to me. Yes, he said, but not to hurt you, to find you. He opened the box. Inside was a diamond-studded gold ring, simple but elegant. Adaora Nwankwo. Will you marry me? She was shaking, breathless, and smiling all at once. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Yes, 1,000 times. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and in that tiny gatehouse with peeling paint and a rusty kettle, 2 hearts found there forever. The next morning, the whole compound woke up to a surprise. A white banner was hanging across the main gate. She said yes, wedding loading. Mama Ebuka fainted and came back to life. Chinedu sprayed water on his head and screamed, Gateman way be billionaire. Even Uncle Bala, the compound gossip, wept silently and said, This is the kind of juju I want in my life. The compound had never been so busy. Even Mama Ebuka brought out her finest wrapper, the one she only wore during naming ceremonies and presidential elections. People were screaming in shock, dancing in confusion, and whispering like radio stations. So that boy way they sweep compound, na billionaire. Adaora catch 'em like fish. Chai, love sweeto. The wedding preparations took over the whole neighborhood. Derek, no longer Emma, made sure everyone from the compound had a role. Mama Ebuka became the community wedding announcer. Uncle Bala was the MC, even though he told 15 dry jokes before he finally landed one. The venue was nothing short of magical. Glass chandeliers, white roses, fairy lights, and a long aisle that looked like it led straight into heaven. Adara stepped out, dressed in a flawless white gown, looking like an angel that took a wrong turn and landed in Lagos. Mama Adara, now strong and glowing, held her hand tightly before letting go at the altar. When Derek saw her walking toward him, he whispered, "She still looks like the girl who brought me yam porridge at midnight." Adara smiled at him and whispered back, "And you still look like the gatekeeper who stole my heart in order to keep it." When it was time for vows, Derek took her hands and said, "I came here pretending to be poor so I could find someone rich, not in money, but in heart. Adaora, I found gold in you, I found peace in your voice, and I found home in your heart." The crowd, "Oh!" Adara wiped a tear and replied, "They said I was too proud, too difficult, too expensive. But you saw through my walls. You gave me a love I didn't have to beg for. I don't care if you're a billionaire or a broom seller. Derek, you're mine." The priest smiled and said, "I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your—" Before he could finish, Derek grabbed her and kissed her like a man who waited 10 lifetimes. The crowd screamed like it was World Cup. At the wedding reception, Uncle Bala's wig fell off while dancing shaku shaku. Mama Ebuka fought a waiter for chicken that's bigger than the one I got. Chinedu caught the bouquet and immediately proposed to a girl he met that morning. The laughter, the dancing, the music, it was pure joy. But the highlight? Derek stood up and made a surprise announcement. "This compound gave me the love of my life, so starting today, rent here is free, for 1 whole year." You could hear people fainting in the background. Few months later, Derek and Adara moved into his glass mansion by the sea. Mama Adara had her own wing with pink curtains and a 60-inch TV. And Adara, she didn't just become a wife, she became a partner in Derek's business empire. But every now and then, when she wanted to make him blush, she'd say, "Ogre billionaire, can you still sweep like my gatekeeper?" And he'd reply, "Only if you cook me that midnight porridge." Then they'd both laugh, kiss, and fall in love all over again. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment how you felt about the story on the comments section. Please encourage us by liking and subscribing. Put on the notification so that you will be notified whenever we post a story. Thank you and remain blessed.